Now, boxing. Anthony Joshua is going to take on the YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul in a professional bout in Miami next month. The former world heavyweight champion.
I stepped up. We both agreed terms, no complication, no egos involved, and we got to fight together. I'm happy. It's an interesting fight for the public, for myself. That's why these opportunities I take with both hands, because they're great learning opportunities as well.
Nobody cares. Train harder. Say what? Nobody cares. Train harder.
Practice went great. Got a lot of punches coming up. And I'm freaking gonna box everybody in the world. and I'm really nervous.
Second camp, and what I find myself doing now is being able to express myself more. When I was with him, I understood now. He was like, I don't want you to do this, I don't want you to do that. This is exactly what I want you to do. And our goal was just to win the fight. I've come back to world-class boxing gym as a winner. And I've done that, and now we're building once again. One thing though is hot, but only snowflakes complain about.
I got this little fan on. If it weren't for that, bro, I swear to God, I'd be drenched. You can buy fucking aircon and bitch it out, or fucking open the door, get some fresh breeze, and you train through it and you get stronger mentally. That's it. That's it. You get stronger mentally, deal with it. There's the door. If I don't want to deal with it.
MVP presents Jake versus Joshua. Judgment Day, December 19th, live from Miami at the Kaseya Center. 8 3-minute rounds in a professionally heavyweight sanctioned bout.
Here we go!
And yes, it's live globally on the biggest streaming platform in the world. My good old friends, Netflix, baby.
If he wins, then he's beating a former heavyweight boxing world champion, certainly one of the best heavyweights of his generation.
Past 5 rounds with this kid. He has to go past 1 round or 2 rounds. Past beyond 4 or 5 rounds, you know, people are going to be doubting you as a fighter himself. So he has to smoke him out like what he did Francis Ngannou.
Carl Froch opened with a ruthless takedown of the proposed Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua matchup, calling it a blatant marker of Joshua's decline. He argued Joshua's recent form shows he's no longer the elite force he once was, making this fight a calculated business decision rather than a competitive one. In Froch's view, choosing an influencer-level opponent signals that Joshua has drifted from the top tier. To him, this isn't a comeback fight, it's a lucrative final swing for a former champion who's lost his direction.
Professional heavyweight fight against an elite world champion in his prime. Fake Paul, let me stop you right there. Anthony Joshua, in his last 7 fights, has been beaten 3 times. The 4 fighters that he beat didn't come to win. So he's not in his prime, is he? He's literally at the end of his career, pretty much finished. And this is why taking this fight with you is telling you all you need to know. It's a cash out. So you might as well just cream as much money as he can at the end of his career, fighting an absolute joke shop in clown world. When I beat Anthony Joshua, he says, every doubt disappears. Come on. I mean, if this is a straight up AJ versus Jake Paul, then we all know what should happen. This is a 1-round.
Tony Jeffries offered a completely different angle, describing Anthony Joshua as a complete, powerful professional operating on a totally separate level. While acknowledging Jake Paul's bravery for accepting the challenge, Jeffries warned this is a catastrophic misjudgment. He believes Paul has finally stepped too far, choosing an opponent far beyond his capacity. Jeffries predicted this fight ends violently and early, most likely within the first 3 rounds under Joshua's overwhelming strength.
Anthony Joshua is an absolute beast, an unbelievable, highly skilled, highly trained, highly experienced professional boxer with power in both hands, and he's really good at finishing people off. And even though I really take my hat off for Jake Paul for taking this fight, I didn't really want to take it because of what's going to happen in the result of this fight, and I want to keep on this Jake Paul train. I think he's doing great, and I love his ambition. I love that he's trying to become a world champion and following his dreams and believing in himself, but at a certain point, you bite off more than you can chew. And this right here, he's bit off way more than he can chew. I think Anthony Joshua is going to end this fight within 3.
Spencer Oliver expressed genuine worry for Jake Paul's physical safety, noting that the true danger would come if Paul somehow lasted into the later rounds and repeatedly absorbed Joshua's power, risking serious long-term damage. However, Oliver quickly dismissed that scenario as unrealistic. He believes the fight will be far more straightforward, a rapid stoppage from Joshua that ends things quickly and cleanly, long before any prolonged punishment can develop.
The worry for me would be that if Jake Paul would be able to get through a few rounds, and then you go, then it could be a danger to his health because there is, you know, ramifications from taking blows like that off Anthony Joshua. But I think the fight could be done quite quickly and be when you're talking about the dangers and death and all that, I don't see it like that because I don't think that Jake Paul will be able to hang in there long enough to get any sort of serious.
Nakisa Bidarian of Most Valuable Promotions framed this matchup as a high-stakes opportunity on both sides. For Jake Paul, it represents a chance to shock the world, silence critics, and step into the world title conversation with a single historic upset. For Anthony Joshua, it's a massive global event in his comeback narrative, where knocking out Paul would make him a hero among traditional boxing fans. Bidarian acknowledged the frustration from purists, noting how quickly his promotion gained influence, but dismissed injury concerns by pointing out that mismatches far greater than this happen in boxing every single weekend.
Possible, silencing the doubters and putting himself in a position to be in conversation for a belt, and he gets that if he beats Anthony Joshua. And for Joshua, it's pretty simple. He's been out for quite a bit of time. He comes back and does one of the biggest events in the world, and if he knocks out Jake Paul, he will be idolized by many within boxing. It angers people in boxing that we can come in and get as much attention and notoriety as we have, as quickly as we have.
Is there a fear of injury?
I think there's fear of injury in any sport, number one. Number two, I would say if you look at any boxing event on any given day, there's much larger mismatches than what this fight.
David Hay then provided the harshest appraisal yet, leaving absolutely no ambiguity. He claimed even if Anthony Joshua had been unconscious for 5 years, he could still wake up and easily defeat Jake Paul, insisting the two fighters are built on entirely different levels. Hay declared he cannot imagine any reality where Paul wins a round, let alone the fight. He added that if Paul even has a single minute where he appears to outperform Joshua, that moment alone would count as one of the biggest victories of his career. Looking at this matchup,
Joshua could have been in a coma for the last 5 years. He would have woke up, got out of bed, and he would win this fight. He's two completely different specimens in there. I can't see any version of reality where Jake Paul somehow finds a way to win one round, let alone win the fight. You know, if there's a 1 minute section of the fight that Jake Paul does better than Anthony Joshua in, that's a win.
Paul has evolved into a credible domestic level fighter who now steps in against a former world champion. Nelson suggested there's only one path to a possible upset: Joshua repeating the same mistakes he made against Ruiz or Dubois by abandoning fundamentals. Still, he doubted Joshua would falter this time, believing the immense spotlight will force him into elite condition, sharp focus, and the perfect fight weight, much like his preparation for Usyk. Nelson concluded that while Joshua may appear relaxed on the outside, he'll be fiercely serious inside the ring, knowing that giving an underdog any opening invites real danger.
Domestic level fighter. He's no longer a YouTuber boxing. He's a decent domestic level fighter. Now he has an opportunity to go in there with a slightly faded world champion, because AJ's not a world champion anymore. I'm not saying he's shot, I'm not saying he's just below that level now. So now this young man has got an opportunity to get in there with him. Now the only way this is going to happen where he gets turned over is if Anthony Joshua does what he's done before and leaves his tools at home, like he did with Daniel Dubois, like he did with Andrew Ruiz. Well, like that's the only way. Can I see Anthony Joshua doing that? No, because there's far too much pressure on him. But this is far too much pressure, and he has to come in at the supreme weight, the weight he came in against Alexander Usyk. That means he's trained. He's got the weight down. So therefore, he's not going to come in and think, oh, this is the pushover. He's going to have a nice, cool swagger about him, thinking, I'm going to get this job done. But in his head, he's got to say, I'm going to be seriously on point here, because if you give a man a chance that hasn't got one, then you've got...
Promoter Frank Warren acknowledged that on paper, Anthony Joshua is the overwhelming favorite, a natural heavyweight, a two-time world champion, and significantly larger than Jake Paul. Yet Warren credited Paul heavily, calling him a master showman and perhaps the best marketer in the sport, someone who has leveraged fame better than most professionals. He emphasized that Paul is now fully committed to boxing, jumping from beating low-tier fighters to facing a former champion. Even as an underdog, Paul's seriousness transforms the matchup into a genuine high-risk, high-reward encounter, one where he stands to gain everything.
Paper, everybody's going to say that he's a big favourite. He's the two-time world champion. He's a natural heavyweight. He's a big guy. I understand there's a weight clause, so he's going to have to be at least a stone heavier than he was for his last fight. If that's what I'm hearing is true. But it's, you know, for Jake, who's a brilliant brilliant promoter. He trains as a professional fighter. He's a licensed boxer now. Obviously, the early days, the level of opposition weren't so good, but then again, he's got no amateur experience. And now he's people have said, when you're going to fight someone, well, Jesus, I mean, talk about going from one extreme to the other. He's really up there now, and he's fighting, as I say, a two-time world champion, natural weight, heavyweight. He's gonna have his hands full. He's gonna be a big underdog, a big underdog. But you know what? People watch it because they think it's a car.
Benavidez Sr. agreed that Joshua's size, experience, and technical advantages are simply too much for Paul at this point. However, he pushed back against the idea that the fight must end in an early knockout to avoid embarrassment. He argued that Paul is a disciplined, capable fighter who could potentially stretch the contest into the later rounds or even reach a decision. While he does not believe Paul can win, he views the matchup as competitive and entertaining, making it a must-watch event.
Don't count him out. I think that's a very dangerous fight for Jake Paul. But at the end of the day, we could have a big upset, But I think that AJ is too much for Jake Paul at this point, and he's bigger than Jake Paul, in my opinion.
Do you think it's competitive? A lot of people are saying if AJ doesn't get him out of there in 2 rounds, it'll be a huge embarrassment.
I don't think that's not the case, that he's gonna get Jake Paul. At the end of the day, Jake Paul has been training hard too, and he's a pretty good fighter. I don't think he would take him out in 2-3 rounds. I think maybe in the later rounds, or it might go to decision, but I don't think that Jake Paul can take AJ out. Or AJ could take Jake Paul. Maybe, but I don't know. It's just going to be an exciting fight. I think I want to see that fight, to be honest.
From a strategic lens, Michael Bisping argued this fight is pure upside for Jake Paul. A victory would be career-defining, immortalizing him as the man who toppled a generational heavyweight talent with a massive physical advantage. But more importantly, even in defeat, Paul still wins in the eyes of the public. Simply stepping into the ring with someone of Joshua's caliber proves his seriousness, challenges the critics, and elevates his reputation through sheer willingness to test himself against the most dangerous opponent possible.
It's a lose-lose. We'll start with Jake Paul first. The reason I say it's a win-win for Jake Paul is because, listen, if he wins, then he's beating a former heavyweight boxing world champion, certainly one of the best heavyweights of his generation, and of course, a man that is way bigger than Jake Paul. Of course, it's a win. And if he loses, it's still a win for Jake Paul because he had the balls. He was man enough. He was willing to test himself. He would prove everyone wrong, all his critics, like me. By the way,
one passionate boxing fan outlined a potential path to a Jake Paul upset, insisting that while Paul is an unrefined boxer, his unorthodox unpredictability and proven knockout power make him dangerous. The fan noted that Joshua is under enormous global pressure, and if Paul were to land his looping overhand right, Joshua's chin and confidence could crack. For this upset to happen, the fan believes Paul must survive the early storms. If he reaches the 2nd or 3rd round, the psychological pressure on Joshua may become overwhelming, shifting momentum toward the underdog. Do you?
Underdog's favor. Do you think he can win? Jake Paul?
I think it's a possibility. No one is backing Jake Paul currently. You've seen him in the ring. You can see that he's got some knockout power. And I also believe people don't look at Joshua's last few fights. And I don't think it's going to be as big of a landslide as people feel. I feel like there's an overhand right that could easily land, and I wouldn't predict that Joshua's chin can last that. The problem is that all of the pressure's on Joshua at the moment. So Jake Paul, if he gets knocked out in 12 seconds, he should get knocked out. The problem is as soon as Joshua starts taking damage, all of a sudden he's thinking, the world is watching me. I'm a professional fighter and I'm getting beat off a YouTuber. All of the pressure is in Joshua, and that's a lot that can weigh on a man. You can't deny that Jake Paul has power. I think it's one of his only attributes. I think he's a very poor boxer, but what he does have is a weird technique where you don't know what
he's got power. How do we know he's got power?
He's knocked people out. Joshua has all of the world looking at him thinking you should walk him over. If it gets 2 rounds, 3 rounds inside, I think Joshua loses.
Another voice dismissed the debate about exhibition rules, saying the specifics don't matter as long as both fighters are throwing with full force. He simplified the fight entirely, predicting it will be one-sided without needing technical analysis. Adol Ladd framed it as an easy $100 million payday for Joshua that he would be foolish to pass up. He claimed Joshua should finish the fight in 1 round, noting Jake Paul wouldn't even qualify as a regional cruiserweight champion under British standards, while Joshua remains a top 10 heavyweight with a 60-pound size advantage, superior strength, and far better skills.